Welcome in, everyone, on this Saturday afternoon. That is right, Saturday afternoon in July. And the reason why I say it's a little surprising is because we weren't expecting this to happen until at least tomorrow. We'll get into that in just a little bit as to what I mean by that as people continue to make their way into this emergency GC, or we should call it what? GGC Live. That's a little corny one. That'd be a Colin Taylor joke right there.
Yeah, that's dad
As you
joke.
guys come on in, my name is Mike Yuva, and joined with me today is Colin Taylor. We will also have the man that has been on top of this right from the beginning, Jamie Shaw, who is out at Peach Jam. Colin was on his way over there to Peach Jam. I think he's hanging out in the parking lot right now. But because of what took place today, we had to go into this, and we will give you as much information as we can. Over the next couple of days, we will be able to give you a little bit more as to how we got to this point. But Colin, bottom line is this: G.G. Jackson, the #1 consensus player in the land, a local product at that, he has decided to break the mold, and he will be staying home to play for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yeah, it turned into more of a when, not if situation as the last couple of days have drug on, but absolutely massive for South Carolina, absolutely massive for GG, his family, Lamont Paris. I mean, insert whoever you want to here. I mean, he becomes the highest rated recruit in program history. As we get Jamie Shaw into the mold here, absolutely massive for him, and can't say enough good things about what this could potentially mean for South Carolina as they move forward in year one under Lamont Paris.
Yeah, Jamie Shaw hopping on with us. We appreciate him taking some time because I know he's got to cover all the other national guys out there. I mean, G.G. Jackson, he's a pretty big deal, but of course you're covering everyone else out there. Jamie, Colin and I were talking about this earlier as to the possibilities of this happening today. For some people that followed our coverage last week, right, or 2 weeks ago, I mean, it seems like it was forever ago. The night that GG decommitted from North Carolina, you explained that when he decided to go to Peach Jam, that if he wanted to play in that tournament, he wouldn't be able to reclassify until it was done. And obviously, Peach Jam goes from Sunday to Sunday. What took place, though, that allowed him to do that today? Because I think some people that haven't been following this as closely might be wondering, okay, why today? Why not yesterday? Why not tomorrow?
Well, because his team's done playing. They finished. Obviously, they lost in the playoff rounds and everything of the games, and they're done playing. So his commitment to the circuit, I guess, is done, and he's able to, move forward as he wishes.
And to be able to get to this point, I mean, for both of you guys, we saw this over the last couple of weeks. I know all three of us have stayed in contact, even Colin during his vacation. To see it play out this way, though, how massive is this for not just Lamont Paris, but just for the program as a whole?
Well, it's huge so I'm sitting here at Peach Jam right now. It was 3 o'clock. We were just watching the New York Reds play in the semifinal game to go to the finals of Peach Jam on the 16U bracket. John Calipari, Bruce Pearl, Jawan Howard, et cetera, sitting there watching. John Shire, everybody's looking at their phones talking about the University of South Carolina at 3 o'clock. It's a massive thing that kind of everybody knew it was coming, but it's a ripple across the entire country. When it comes to basketball recruiting, everybody's talking about the University of South Carolina right now. Everybody's talking about landing #1 player in the country, about getting the University of North Carolina's first decommitment in the modern recruiting era to go to another college, to decommit, go to the University of South Carolina, stay home, and do all that. So not only is the country talking about it, but the players are talking about it too. I'm not sure if you read my article I put out earlier today where I talked to Cam Scott, where I talked to Colin and everything too, and they all talk about, on the record and off the record, how eye-opening that it is as a situation for them as players as well. Not only that a player in the state of South Carolina could reach the heights of #1 overall and everything, but they can stay home and they can progress and do all that. Within their state, close to home, their families can watch them play and they can build legacies in their backyard. That's really eye-opening to the players as well.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I'm at a different event right now. I'm actually going to Peach Jam as soon as I hang up with you guys. But I was just talking to Jordan Butler, who's in town playing at a thing, and he said GG and I are really close. And this not only makes a ripple effect in state with Jordan himself, who's a top 60 guy, but Cam Scott and KJ Green and all of these guys who have grown up with Gigi. It really helps. And now that's not saying that South Carolina is going to land commitments from all these guys, but this is one of those things where they start to pay attention a little bit more. They're more willing to listen and get your foot in the door. And if Gigi has a good experience, if South Carolina has a really good year with him and his statistics, it helps that much more. And I think that that's a big thing for South Carolina. You're on the national radar now, and people are going to be paying attention to your games because you have, Gigi Jackson on your roster.
Mm-hmm. And Colin, I do want to take a further look into what this means for South Carolina this year, and we can talk about what it means afterwards as well. I know we only have Jamie for a little bit, as you can tell, staying busy today in the court, loud at court at that. But Jamie, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, right, as to some of the pieces that needed to happen for South Carolina. For people that may have missed that show that night, what do you think would ultimately help get to this point? Because I know there's going to be some people saying, all right, see, Frank Martin's not here. That's the no, that has nothing to do with it. There has to be much more that goes into it than just that.
So I think it was a full team effort from the university side of things, because previously the previous staff had to lay the groundwork, had to plant the seed. Hey, do you want to reclass? The family has to come to a conclusion to reclass. They have to go through the admissions and everything to see what his transcripts look like and how he can go through reclassification. Gigi has to do the work. The family has to buy into doing the extra courses to be able to graduate on time. And then, Lamont Paris has to come in the time between Frank Martin being fired and Gigi committing to the University of North Carolina. Lamont Paris built a relationship with the family. In that short amount of time, he was able to build a relationship with that family. And obviously, Kerry Rich had a previous relationship with the family that had dated back quite a few years and everything. But Lamont was able to lay the groundwork himself in that it was a few days. I don't know how many days exactly it was. But in that time frame, he was the first person he went to go see after the fact. He was at Ridgeview High School. He went to all of that, and he built a relationship, and the family remembered that. So it was an all around effort from the university, spearheaded by Lamont Paris's relationship he was able to build, and the trust. I guess they were able to build quicker.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that goes understated here, is that Lamont Paris, when he went and visited with Gigi Jackson, got to sell him on some of the things that they could do. Lamont Paris obviously had some, from a stylistic standpoint, coach guys similar to Gigi. Your Sam Deckers, your Nigel Hayeses at Wisconsin. He was on staff for those guys, and I think that really helped sell Gigi early on in the process. It was just, at the time, a little bit too much ground to make up when Gigi wanted to announce something that spring. So to have that to fall back on once Gigi decided to reopen things and talk more about reclassification certainly helped. They wouldn't do this if they didn't believe in what Lamont Paris wanted to do with Gigi and how much he could help thrive. That there are other things that, obviously go along with it, but he wouldn't have done this if he didn't believe in Lamont Paris's system and schematics and being close to home.
And again, if you're just joining us right now, I think you know what the news is, because you had plenty of time to be able to get ready for it after Gigi Jackson took to Twitter around 1 o'clock this afternoon to announce a big announcement coming up at 3. And, of course, that announcement was to share that he will be staying home to play for the University of South Carolina, the highest commit to South Carolina in the modern era of recruiting. And, Jamie, we talked about this before. But when you talk about the mold, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later with Colin in terms of what it necessarily means for the next season, but just big picture, when you have a player of his caliber that can come here, and if he's able to go out, have a great season, he goes off to be a lottery pick from a ripple effect, how big can that be for South Carolina?
Well, obviously it could be massive. Anytime, I go through right now and I'm talking to these top-ranked recruits, and Auburn's getting a lot of buzz right now because of what they did with Jabari Smith. It's everything right now going toward the next year. So if this Gigi thing goes well, he gets drafted in the lottery like he's projected to currently, everybody's going to be talking about that, because Gigi's a unique player. Gigi's an engaging player. Gigi's going to have captivation of the country as to how this is actually going to play out. People are going to be paying attention to it. So he's going to get a lot of coverage. And let's say come December or January, he's actually playing incredibly well, and things are being projected. He's going to get a lot of national coverage continued throughout that. So it just depends on how they're able to capitalize on the coverage that's already the national organic coverage that's already going to be out there covering the story. How they're able to capitalize on that, because the players are paying attention. This is a big deal. Obviously, going through, on July 3rd, whenever I called Colin and told him, hey, this is happening, and put out that initial article, and all of the stuff that came off of that initial article for the next 2 weeks, and then the actual decommitment happening, and then this happening now for a month now. This has been a trending topic throughout culture, not just through sports, but throughout culture, of all this happening, and now is building on it. People are talking about it, so people are going to be paying attention to how well it goes, and you can't, and you can't fault that. You can't put that aside, and you can't sit there and say that that's not going. If everything goes as planned, that's not going to have a huge ripple effect moving forward.
Yeah,
and
I don't think.
Colin, not to cut you off, I do, because I know, Jamie, I know we only have you for a couple minutes. I do want to bring this up, and Colin, I want to hear your thoughts too.
I got a little bit of time. Cam Scott's game doesn't start for another 15 or so minutes. I got a little bit of time to play.
Okay, then Colin, just go. I just want to make sure. Sorry about that.
I mean, let's think about this. Every mock draft on The Athletic, on 3, on insert whatever national publication you want to put out there, every mock draft, somewhere in the top 10, you're going to look and it's going to say G.G. Jackson, South Carolina. Like, I think that there's some cachet you build from that. And that's something in the offseason that helps you. You can sell to these guys on the recruiting trail, especially in 2023 class, where guys want to commit before that October-November signing period. That helps you sell that. Like, listen, we're recruiting. We landed a guy who's going to be a top 10 pick, is projected to be a top 10 pick. Now, that comes with the fact of, hey, you got to go out there and you got to put him in positions to succeed. He's got to hold up his end of the bargain and play like a top 10 player in the country. And he has to have some success to really help sell your point. But right now, this is a massive deal for South Carolina, just from that regard of you earn some cachet and you're going to be talked about throughout the rest of the regular, this offseason of having G.G. Jackson. It puts a spotlight on your program that for Lamont Paris is a really good thing in year one as you're trying to build this program into something that as a program that's ready to take the next step.
Now, there's one thing that stood out to me, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse by taking a step back and looking at, what used to be, but I just want to bring this. I mean, it's not also to take anything away from Lamont Paris. I'm trying to scroll down as we go through all these comments, and we will get to some of your questions. I know they're pouring in. I know multiple questions asking what could be with that final scholarship spot, and that is true. There's only one left, and I'm sure Colin can give us some insight into that in just a little bit. But I did see this question from John. It says, Frank could be the reason why GG committed. Jamie, you kind of hit on it before. This was a group effort. Give credit to what Lamont Paris and this coaching staff was able to do. Give credit to what the former coaching staff was able to do. It was a group effort. Even though that coaching staff isn't here, would you agree with that?
Well, you're going to love this analogy here, Mike, being the Red Sox fan that you are.
I don't want to talk about the Red Sox. Come on. It was a rough night last night.
But it's like Andy Pettit went the first 8 innings and Mariano Rivera came in and closed. I know that obviously I know they're the Yankees or whatever, but that was the thing. But it's kind of like, the previous staff went the first, 7 or 8 innings, and then the current staff had to do what they had to do to get the final 3 outs. They did their part. Everybody within the university, as I said earlier, played their role, did their part. And because if it wasn't for Chuck Martin or the previous staff, it wouldn't have even been brought up. Because GG is not a reclassified player. He's a 17-year-old kid who's graduating high school right now. So to get the extra, to approach the family with the option, then to go to administration, and to get all the stuff done, and then for Gigi to do the actual work and everything, the groundwork was laid. Andy Pettit went the first 7 innings, and then the new staff had to come in and show them you can still get this done here, that you can still have this success. As Colin said earlier, the Frank Kaminsky's and Nigel Hayes, we've done this before. We've had these guys, we've developed these guys, we put them in the pros, and the comfort level with Lamont, they closed the door. They were Mariano Rivera for the last 2 innings. They got the last 3 6 outs of the game, and here we are.
Yeah.
And as
Ditto.
we go,
What he said.
and just to point out, guys, I mean, you notice I'm trying to go through the comments here. If you want to be able to see any of the stories from Jamie, Colin, myself, as well as our entire On3 family, you can go on over to Gamecock Central. We have some of those links that are popping up in the comments section, so you can go directly to them. Some of those are free. Some of those are also for our subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber yet, especially with football season gearing up, and then, of course, everything that happened today with GG Jackson, if you want to be able to sign up 4 months for just $1, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. Head on over to On3 right now. Colin, let's just get right into it. The question that a lot of people want to know, and could there be a ripple effect with GG signing? Yes, but at the same time, too, yeah, it's the end of July here. So I bring all that up not to be a wet blanket, and maybe you'll be able to change my opinion on that. What do you believe South Carolina will do with that final scholarship position? Because they do have one left. And does GG signing and committing to South Carolina, could that cause a major change as to how South Carolina uses that final spot?
Yeah, I know that the plan was to probably bring on another big guy in a wing or guard wing type, and they got their big, they got their power
They
forward.
certainly did.
So I think that you're probably looking at maybe not a point guard per se, but guard wing, someone to kind of shoot. That's probably where they're going to go, but who knows now with how things might get reshaped with the GG and where their board resets. But my guess is with what's out there in the portal right now, there's still plenty of guys. They have their pick of, hey, come and play with this potential lottery guy, and see how your game he can help make your game better. You can help make his game better. So I think that's kind of where they sit right now, and you have a chance to potentially add someone that will help them this coming season.
Jamie, I do want to.
Yeah, and watch
Go,
for
Jamie.
it when it comes to that. Watch for grad transfer to come in,
Yeah.
Because right now, kind of where it's at is most of the good players are already taken. So you don't want just a warm body, especially you don't want somebody to come in who's not as good. You're not sold on to have them for multiple years. A grad transfer comes in, they serve a role, they're out in a year, and all that type of stuff too. So unless they can find somebody like they did with Jackson, who's a 23, to reclassify for 22 that nobody's really working right now, watch for it to be a grad transfer as things stand now. As teams go through the early workouts, as teams go through this stuff, there could be a couple other people in the transfer portal that do happen, and those will be looked at as well. So expect new names in the transfer portal, but as of right now, I think a grad transfer might be the way to look for it.
And Lamont Paris has been pretty vocal about he doesn't want to take somebody just to take somebody, and he's let things go. I think they landed DeSosa from Kansas at Chattanooga in August as the semester was starting. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen again, but they have landed good players, different circumstances, but they have landed good players before as the semester's beginning and gotten them on campus and been productive with them.
And to answer Will's question, what's the timeline for GG to be on campus for summer practices? Very soon, as early as next week, is what I'm sure all three of us have been hearing. So we will keep you posted as soon as GG does get on campus. One thing, though, I do want to scroll down to, and just to correct this, Lamont is not at Colonial Life Arena. I don't know if that was a joke, but he's out at Peach Jam, and he was all smiles. One of the national reporters just tweeted a little while ago, throwing his Spurs up, happy out there. Brian,
I'm sure he is courtside for Cam Scott right now.
He's like, okay. Brian Deal said, and
Yeah.
Jamie, Colin, I know you followed him through his Ridgeview career. I've covered him during my Watch Fox days, but I know, Jamie, you followed him very close. What NBA player does GG compare to, at least right now? I know it's tough sometimes when you try to do projections, but when you see him right now, what are people saying?
Maybe like a Jeremy Grant type of player, something along those lines, like a long-ranging forward. He's still young, only 17 years old, has a lot of projecting to do. Now, Jeremy's obviously almost a borderline max contract guy in the NBA right now, so Not saying he's the same thing that he is now, but at the same stages of their development, Jeremy Grant might be a pretty good comparison for similarities, archetypes.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Colin, when you see this guy and the way he plays? Because I know you've been following Gamecock men's basketball for quite some time, and just how he's going to fit into this offense. Now, certainly, there's going to be a lot of new faces. You have a lot of new faces here, so I know it's tricky to say, but obviously you have a new coach too, which makes things a little bit more challenging. But what do you expect to see from Gigi as he makes that leap into play basketball at South Carolina?
Yeah, it's that tradition. I mean, it's not traditional. It's more of the new wave power forward spot in the college game. Lamont Paris likes to run that kind of offense where they have that. It's a kind of a versatile step out for wing player, and Gigi's going to play that role. He'll be able to play in space, but they're also going to put him in situations where he can play back to the basket and play down low and rebound. He's a really good rebounder. I watched him a lot last night, and he rebounded with the best of them, and he's a really good player that they're going to be able to put in space, but his body still needs to develop. And if it does the way that South Carolina staff is hoping it does once he gets on campus and begins working out, they hope that he can be able to bang and get inside and play with some of these entrenched big men in the SEC. And if his body gets to the point where I think it will, then I don't think there'll be any issues with him potentially playing and rebounding.
I see Ashley say, wouldn't it be wild if Gigi popped in this chat? I'll throw a dart in the dark here, but don't hold your breath. But if he does come in, that would be, that would be very wild. That would be legendary, some would say. Guys, I think the big thing people are just excited about is you have a guy that is coming here, obviously of his caliber, a local player at that, really looking at that local angle, right? And then when you look back, obviously, to the previous staff, that was something that Frank got killed on, right? But there were so many talented guys that he was able to land. It seemed like those players were overlooked more so than the players that he missed on. When you have a guy of Gigi's caliber, right, trying to just break that mold. We saw it with women's basketball, and obviously it's apples to oranges because Asia Wilson played 4 years at South Carolina. Gigi very likely will only play 1 year at USC. When you just see that, though, what can that do from just a local standpoint of just being able to break that stigma that for whatever reason is around South Carolina basketball? Instead of, hey, I'm going to go to Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas. It's like, no, I'm going to actually stay home and play for South Carolina.
It comes in waves. You look back at some of the greatest teams across any sport at South Carolina, and it's been largely built on in-state talent. You look at the football program and doing what they did with the Marcus Lattimores, the Gilmores, the Clowneys, insert, those in-state guys there. You look at baseball, a lot of those in-state guys. You look at basketball, the 1997 team and the 2017 Final Four team, the backbones of those teams were in-state guys, and they came in waves. It wasn't just one class, it was over 2 or 3. And I think that South Carolina is hoping it stays that way because you have some really good players in 23 from this state, and you have some really, really good ones in 24. You hope that continues and helps in waves. And I don't think landing a number 1 player right in your backyard, believe from Camden, played at Columbia, that helps you out so much from a narrative standpoint, especially in year 1 under a guy like Lamont Paris.
We continue to go right here, just continuing to scroll through the messages.
I got time for one more, Mike. I got to get on out of here.
Is there any question, Colin, that comes to your mind that you want to ask Jamie?
No. I'll tell him I'll see you in a little bit for Cam Scott.
I was about to say, Colin and I have been pretty in communication throughout this whole last couple months. So.
I'll never forget sitting there on a Sunday morning on July 4th weekend, and I got a text from Jamie that said, "I got some news for you coming in a little bit." And I look at my wife sitting next to me, and she's like, "You're gonna have to work today, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yep." And you immediately hop on the phone.
Yeah,
Jamie, I'll ask you this last one. This is coming from Not Your Average Sports Kid. I know this is one that we talked about the last time. I don't know if it's too early to be able to project that, which is, the question is, GG ranking according to the 2022 class. Is there any idea where he is, or is that still to be determined?
Yeah, so we haven't nailed it down yet. There's another player too that's probably going to come up pretty soon from 23 and move up to 2022 as well. That's a top 10 kid, but he'll be the top 10 for sure. Where it goes from there, I have to look at it more specifically, but we'll probably nail that down coming up here this week.
Well, Jamie,
Maybe
we
maybe
appreciate it.
maybe
What's
even
up?
today. We'll probably even actually figure it out today, here in a little bit.
Well, Jamie, we appreciate you taking the time. Again, you've been on top of this story from the very beginning, and I know there's a lot of people that are watching this that are very appreciative of all the work that you're doing for us at over at On Three. So enjoy watching Cam Scott and the Peach Jam, and enjoy seeing Colin Taylor in a little bit too, bud.
There we go. All right, I always enjoy seeing
Yeah.
Colin.
All right,
Yeah, you're about the only one, bud, but I appreciate that.
Hey
Again,
man,
that
it's
is-
always a good day when I see Colin.
Yep.
Again, that is
Yeah,
Jamie
sure.
Shaw checking in from the Peach Jam, giving us a couple of minutes of his time. Who, again, Colin, as you and I both know, he has been working his tail off the last couple of
Yeah.
weeks to be able to get this story solidified, and it's happened.
Yeah.
Taking a look now, and I was trying to speed over a little bit because I just didn't know how much longer we were going to have Jamie for a while.
Yeah,
when
you're
you
not
look
going to have
at-
me much longer. I got to go Peach Jam
I know
too,
you got to
man.
go in too. When you look at this year's team, and I think there's going to be people that look at it in two different ways, right? Number one, okay, what this means for South Carolina basketball, big picture, the future, moving forward, not this upcoming season, but the year after, and 3 years from now, 4 years, right? When you look at next year, though, what does this mean for South Carolina basketball? Because there's obviously so many new faces, so many guys who I wouldn't say aren't talented, but they haven't had proven talent at the level that they're going to play in. What do you expect for USC next season at this point now with the addition of GG Jackson?
Yeah, just based off what they have incoming with the addition of Gigi, a lot's going to be determined on that final roster spot, I think, too. Do I think that they're like a surefire lock for the NCAA tournament right now? Probably not. But what I will say is that they brought in a good mix of entrenched mid-major guys, the Hayden Browns, the Ibrima Dibbas of the world. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. But they also brought in some guys from Power 5 schools, good Power 5 schools, who maybe haven't had the production that they were expected to coming out of high school. Your Michi Johnsons, your Benjamin Bosmans, Verdonks. But they have the potential. And if they can get to that potential mixed with some of these newcomers, the freshmen and some of these returners, then you don't know what you have. I think South Carolina feels good about where they stand in terms of making a push to get into the field of 64, but right now there's just too many unknowns. You just don't know how those mid-major guys are going to adjust to playing at a high major level, and how some of the guys who maybe haven't had the success at the high major level, how they're going to adjust to the SEC in this new system. So I really, really think that the jury is still very much out, and it will still be very much out until you have a completed roster and you kind of see how these pieces mix once you get them back on campus and working out in August and September and October before the season.
This is probably one that, and I'm not, Brian, I know you're probably very excited about basketball season. I don't know if it's way too early to project a starting five. Colin, I don't know if there's any guys in your head right now, because it's tricky because there's going to be so many new faces. We just don't know exactly what Lamont ultimately wants on the court for his starting five. But I mean, shoot, even just some names to keep an eye on who could potentially crack the starting five with GG.
Yeah, I think GG has a very fair shot to get into
going to start breaking news.
I think GG's probably going to start. You're probably looking at Michi Johnson being in that starting lineup somewhere. You're probably looking at Dibba being in that starting lineup somewhere. But after that, who knows? Maybe a Jacoby Wright steps up. Maybe a Chico Carter steps up, or Josh Gray, or somebody else, or this random, this floating scholarship out there. Maybe they get someone who could be an instant impact guy and a starter. So a lot to be determined, but I think it's very safe to assume that Gigi's going to be in there, and then they kind of find some pieces around that and hope that it turns into something that can contend for one of those 8 spots in the NCAA tournament.
And as we continue to do this, we're going to wrap things up in just a little bit. Just a reminder that GC Live is brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond. be sure to check him out. And during a time like this, Clint can help you make your life a little bit easier. Make things easier, put a smile on your face. There's plenty of smiles right now in the city of Columbia and around. And Colin, we were talking about this beforehand. What's up, GC? What news? Yeah, I read that wrong, Gamecock Ryan. I thought you were saying, what's the news? I wasn't here. I know, obviously, you weren't covering the teams. But you think back, and I know there's so many people on here that can remember those days of the early 2010 period, the Spurrier days, and then obviously what took place with baseball winning back-to-back. Where do you compare this right now to just the excitement when you have Aaliyah Boston, a defending national champ and the player of the year last year? You have Spencer Rattler, who just transferred in, and the buzz that it has created going all the way back to December with football. And we obviously saw what it did going into SEC Media Days without him even being there. And now, of course, what we're seeing with men's basketball with GG Jackson. How would you just compare what's playing out right now in Columbia?
Yeah, this is probably the most excitement across athletics, in general, since that run of 10 through 13. Just the anticipation of seeing Spencer Rattler on the field, the anticipation of, obviously the women's basketball program is going to be national championship favorites again this year and has a pretty doggone good shot at winning it. And then the basketball team, there's some anticipation. There's some excitement around these programs that that's one of the reasons why the administration made some of the changes that they made over the last 2 or 3 seasons. They wanted to generate this excitement, and I think that they have. And time will tell with football, and time will tell with men's basketball and where things are and how things do pan out this year. But in terms of entering a season and entering a stretch of these next 4 months, which you can get for $1 at Gamecock Central, 4 months, it covers pretty much all the football season, the beginning of basketball season. The excitement over these next 4 months is going to be insane to keep up with and write about and track and cover and talk to people about, because everyone is so excited about these programs and where things could potentially go this year.
And I know I put this tweet out there, but for people that may have missed, I threw it up on the forum as well. This is crazy to think about. In the past year, the following South Carolina teams have beat North Carolina: women's basketball, football, women's soccer, baseball, women's golf, and now, if you count the recruitment of GG Jackson, the consensus #1 player in the country, you could throw men's basketball in there as well. Colin, I know that sounds like a silly stat to throw out there, but I mean, it has to mean something in terms of just creating a buzz and turning attention. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously it's consistency of going out there, getting wins. I understand this doesn't mean that South Carolina would beat North Carolina in basketball. All the Tar Heel fans getting upset about that post. But what I'm trying to put out there is that there is a buzz. It is grabbing attention in comparison to where this program was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and not only that, but from a North Carolina perspective alone, there are a lot of fans that remember South Carolina in the ACC playing against North Carolina, year in and year out in a lot of different sports. And I think there's a lot of fans in this fan base that like to beat the Tar Heels whenever they can. And to be able to get GG Jackson to decommit from North Carolina and come to South Carolina is huge. And then the on-field success after that, just from an optics standpoint, help you in recruiting, help you from a sales pitch perspective if you're South Carolina's administration. And time will tell, like I said, on how the football team does, how the baseball team does. But there's excitement right now, and there's the potential of having really good years in both sports, along with the baseball team kind of reshaping things, and the women's basketball team a chance to win a national title now, it seems like, for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I think that's really, really good for South Carolina sports, and you're able to market that to not only the fan base, but to recruits, and from an NIL perspective helps there as well.
You mentioned NIL, and obviously that's not something that necessarily would come out in a detail standpoint, but you'd have to be naive not to believe that just the era that we're in today, naturally, the fact that you have the #1 player in the country staying home in a local area, how big this could be, obviously, from a local standpoint, to be able to show, like, hey, look, the support of being able to get local talent. Now, like I said, we don't know that for certain, but you would have to be naive not to believe that something could arise. I'm not saying that it's already took place, but I'm saying the possibilities when you have a guy of Gigi's caliber staying home. I say that, Colin, because not just from a basketball standpoint, not just from this situation with Gigi Jackson, but from a bigger picture, basketball, football, baseball, women's basketball. What could this do from a recruiting standpoint to be able to, for Columbia, just as a whole, to be able to show that, hey, look, we can step up when need be and be able to take care of the number one player in the country. Again, that's not to say that anything has happened, but this is just natural things that you think about in the world of NIL.
Yeah, South Carolina, not the administration themselves, but the community has a chance to show up and say, listen, we're willing to put out the money. We're willing to pay and give these guys opportunities to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And if you can see Gigi Jackson do that, if you can see Aaliyah Boston, who's really doing it, a lot of women's basketball players are doing it. Spencer Rattler's making a really good deal for his name, image, and likeness. Same with Carrion Joyner. You're seeing it. And if Gigi can continue that wave of momentum when it comes to that, it can prove not only to the college sports world, but to recruits that South Carolina is a major player in the NIL game. You can have opportunities if you go to South Carolina, and I think that's something you can really help sell to recruits, as name, image, and likeness is not going away. It might change, it might get tweaked over the next year or so, but it's not going away. And the more you can prove to recruits that your university has opportunities, you have opportunities as you go to a university to make money off your name, image, and likeness, it only helps as you get into recruiting some of these really high level kids who have a chance to make some money off their name.
You mentioned you're about to go inside, see Cam Smith play. I mean, how much minutes do we have left with you, Colin? Probably not too much.
Ooh, no, let's one more question it, because I got a 20-minute drive over there.
I say that as you're about to get ready to head on over there, what do you expect just the buzz to be when people are talking about South Carolina in that building? I mean, it was the elephant in the room. It was the elephant in the room. We saw the momentum swaying, and I'm not just saying from the recruiting prediction machine by Jamie Shaw and everyone over at On3, but Lamont Paris walking in there. I mean, that's kind of like the guy that, you know, he walks into the bar, everyone knows it's like, okay, it has to be totally different right now. What do you expect just that buzz to be around USC?
Heavy. I mean, very heavy, and they're going to be the talk of college basketball for a little bit, landing him and getting him to enroll. And I think Lamont is going to enjoy that, and then realize now he gets to coach this team and see what he can take them. But I expect the buzz to be pretty heavy, not only among the coaches there, but also the players and some of the AAU programs that are around still at Peach Jam.
Well, he is Colin Taylor. He does an absolutely incredible job for us, not just for men's basketball, baseball, football, tiddlywinks. He does it all. Colin, appreciate you joining us today. We appreciate everyone joining us on here as well. There'll be a GC Live on Monday, I am sure, with Wes Mitchell, Kendall, that we'll get back into the swing of things, and we'll be able to continue to provide information on this, because this is a developing story, even though, again, it was expected if you've been following along on Gamecock Central. And just one last time before we sign on out here, be sure if you're ready to talk more about Gamecock men's basketball, you're ready to talk about football that's coming up, take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, look at that. 4 months, $1. If you've never tried a message board, if you've never tried Gamecock Central, give it a shot. What's the worst that you can lose? $1? I'll buy you a sweet tea if you don't like it from somewhere else, okay? We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. Be sure to continue to follow Gamecock Central. More stories, more videos, more developing details as they continue to come out to us. Colin, appreciate you hopping on, and safe travels back.
Absolutely. Take it easy, y'all.
All right, everyone have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.